The tubing cutter I use, it's rigid and it says 1/4 to 1 1/8 outer diameter, 6 to 28 millimeters. It says rigid 101, and there's like $21 on Amazon. You can probably get it at Home Depot too, because rigid, I'm pretty sure, is a Home Depot brand. So I stuck the end plug in there and I just tightened it just a little bit, and then I used my pliers to spin it. And then you can't even really see it that well, but it just provides like a little extra sealing. Well, there you can actually kind of see the grooves, and it doesn't track straight, so but it works. So I'd rather use this than the O-ring end plug, because I don't think O-ring should be inside a transmission, because I mean, let's say it gets really hot, it might melt the O-rings. Alright, so I took out the last one and it's pretty much the same as this one. It actually might be the same. So it's this valve, and be really careful because the valve goes this way, but the spring is at the end, so it comes out first after you take that. Well, this thing shot and it hit the ceiling and then it bounced somewhere, and it took me a while to find it. So cover your hand over it while you take off the metal plate. Okay, so everything's done. Make sure that your guide pin is right here and right here. So these are the two CPC valves that we replaced and installed, and that one on the end is the one with the metal plate as a retainer, and that one's just a regular end plug with a clip. So here, what we had was this thing, and it can only go one way, so two bolts here, and with the hole right there. So this probably bolts down onto the main valve body, or onto the bottom AT housing. Torque converter housing. And then obviously on top of this is the metal plate, which we still have to drill holes, so I'm going to keep that out. Right, the accumulator I didn't show you. I did show you the top accumulator, but the accumulator just has one valve. Just take the clip out, clean it, make sure it's not binding, polish it if it is, and then clean it up and put the valve back in there and the clip. What I'm going to show you is the main valve body. This should be the last one that we need to work on. So right here it's got this valve, and I did polish it. There's a spring in it, and I think it goes this way. Not sure what this valve is, but for now we're going to take this out and set it aside. Okay, I don't know if there's any valves in here. There probably are. So I'm going to take off these plates and then we're going to check. So just remember that this filter, it goes the dimple goes downwards, not upwards. It's a mesh filter. Right there is the guide pin. Another guide pin here. Another one here. And another one here. Don't forget that there's a spring here with a check ball inside there. Looks like there's a valve here, here, here. Yeah, so there's a lot of them in here. There's a check ball here, right in there. So I'm gonna take out the check balls so I don't lose them. Alright, so we're gonna start from the side that's got just 2 valves. This one's really stuck, so I'm using pliers. I pushed up on the valve to actually push out the end plug. Then once you've got it this far out, you can get a flathead under here. So I'm going to work on this because it's really stuck in here. I'm going to briefly show each of these because I do need to get all these cleaned out. But basically this one, the one that we just took out, right there, the spring goes in first, I think. And what's special about this one is it has a I think it's a bearing, except there's no balls in there, or it's a bearing sleeve, I think it's what it's called. So this goes in here, and it spins in this sleeve here, and then the end plug and clip. So it goes inwards this way. This is on the inside. So we took that off, and this is the next one that I took out. Goes in that way first. And the spring, there's a spring on, there's this spring right here. And the spring goes in there, and so it points outwards. And this was really stuck, like the end plug was really stuck, and I had to polish this. This manual valve right there, I'm not showing it, but mine tested okay. I'll just make sure that you test it. It's this location right there, and mine was really free. I think they make it loose on purpose, so don't polish this if you don't have to, and usually you don't have to. So we've done these two, and just remember which side I'm showing, because there's this side and this side of the valve body. But we're gonna go from this side this way, and this one I've taken out. This is what it looks like. See if I can. Okay, well, that's what it looks like. I just had to polish the board just a tiny bit because it was getting stuck here. But so it has this, and it has a spring and the retaining plate. So what I'm doing now is, if I know that there's a spring in there, I'll just point the body this way so the chute the spring shoots downwards. Alright, so this is the valve for this next one, and this one's going to be the hole for the manual valve, so we're not doing that one. We've already done that one, or at least I did it. And these things are really light. They feel almost like well, I'm pretty sure it's aluminum with some kind of coloring, because it's not magnetic, so it can't be steel. Okay, so this next one that we're working on has a long spring and a metal plate for the retainer. And the one that we're working on is this one right here. And if you get stuck at the very end, one trick is use pliers that have a spring so that it holds the jaws open automatically for you with that spring right there. So just carefully use it to pull your valve out. And it might have actually just gotten stuck because it's so dirty. This actually is probably a two-piece. I bet there's another one. Yeah, there is. I'll try to get that end part out, but it's right there. Alright, so this one has a long spring and a retaining plate. This one's special because it's two parts. It looks like a aluminum pill, and it was really stuck in there, so I had to actually use a smaller brush to polish it out before I could even get this out. But yeah, I'm not sure what this does, but that's how it is. Right, this one is kind of weird. It's got a really strong spring, stronger than any of them that I've seen so far, and it's got like this this retainer that's got that for maybe for oil lubrication. But what's really weird is it's not even aluminum. It looks like it's stainless steel. I haven't seen one that's stainless steel. And another thing, it's kind of stuck in there. I had to actually polish the very end where the retainer was, just to get the valve out. And I had to use a hook type steel pick, and also this to get into not this side, but the opposite side, because there's no access on this side. I had to go through, let's see, it's maybe it is the other side. Yeah, it's gotta be this side. Okay, so I had to kind of get the pick in here and turn the pick to kind of push out the valve, and then once I got another ledge, I went through here and had to pick out the valve. But this one, definitely make sure you polish it. It's got fairly big spring too, not as big as the last one, but this one's also stainless steel, and it's got a huge opening for that spring. And this one was pretty stuck too. I had to polish it, and it's weird because I had to use two size brushes, a smaller one and a bigger one. I forgot to mention that this one and the last one, both the steel ones, they were scratched up on here too, so I used wet sandpaper with some water. And if this was a sandpaper, I just put it on the sandpaper, put some pressure on it while I spun it, and then I put this on its edge so I could spin this one too. And I'm putting downward pressure on the valve too to keep it flat while I spin it. Alright, so this last one is unique too, because not only is it stainless steel, but it's pretty big, and the spring, I think it's the only one that I've seen that the spring is pointed towards the back, and there's no capture groove in the back, and it's held in by the clip with the end plug. Alright, so I staked the case bearings in here, and obviously it's really sloppy, but it's actually harder than it looks. You have to get the hose punch close enough to the bearing, because if they're too far away, it really does nothing. So once you get it close enough, the way you test it is if the bearing spins, not this part, obviously the outer race, and that's good. And these two I didn't do from the inside, but I should have. I did it from the outside, and it's like super sloppy. And I should have double checked to see if these surfaces were important, because if they are, I'm gonna have to sand this so it's flush. But these bearings don't spin anymore, and a lot of times you'll get chips, like they'll chip off because this is really brittle aluminum. So I've been trying to collect all the chipped off pieces, and actually I lost a lot of it into the carpet, so just be really careful, and then probably spray brake cleaner or something to try to get any of the pieces that broke off that you didn't see. This is the OEM Honda tool. It's like $100. It's the only thing that I found that might work. Basically, you spin this way to spread these bars, and underneath is basically a half circle, like a half moon, and this helps put the tension and lock the bottom part to help support it. So I've got it all set up, and usually you're supposed to put a slide hammer on here, but I don't have one that fits this size thread and this size diameter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try heating up with a heat gun, and then with this hand I'm going to try to pull up on it and see if that works. The fingers weren't gripping on that well, and so what I did is I tapped on here and here, and it helped get the fingers in a little bit better, and then I was able to tighten this a little bit more, and also this. So just make sure that your fingers are in there. This tool really needs to be less thick so it can get underneath the inner race, but this is the only tool that even kind of close to work. So just tap on it. I'm going to try this because I don't have anything to connect to this. I have this ratchet here. I'm putting it under here. I wouldn't put it under that smaller bolt because that smaller bolt's going to be weaker. So put it here. I have a block of wood. Don't make the block of wood go over here, because otherwise you'll be trapping the bearing. And then I'm going to try, just doing this alone isn't working, so I'm going to try heating this up and then try this and see if it works. Or if that doesn't work, I'll have to try to get something longer. So that didn't work either, but I did find a way. So what you need is just a ridiculous amount of leverage. So block of wood, don't block the bearing. Under this thumb wheel, the biggest bolt, not the bottom one. And this is a massive crowbar. And so you can see that the bearing did separate. And I did have to put some weight on here to hold this down, because otherwise it would just rock the entire thing. But
that seemed to work. Let me see if I can get the rest of it out. Yeah, you can hear that. Let me see if I can do the rest by hand, because I don't know if doing that, because doing that at an angle, I might be actually torquing it at an angle, so I don't want to mess up the bore in there. So I'm gonna keep trying this, but basically that's the method of getting these bearings out. Okay, so just trying to do it by hand doesn't work. So as it comes up, what I did is I put something here to make it go higher, because otherwise, if it's too low, it's gonna pull it up at an angle. So just keep stacking stuff until you've got the right height to pull this off. And I can probably get this off now. Let me try stacking something else onto here. Okay. Let's see if this is the right height. So I finally got it out. Basically I had this stacked, and then I put this piece on here. This is not that stable. If you can find something better, that'd be great. But I just stacked a bunch of stuff onto it to get this to the right height, and I was able to leverage this off. The bearing is okay, but I bought a new one and I want to replace it. Also, make sure you get the new guide, because this comes off. And make sure you clean this out. And then to get the new bearing in, also, here's a look at the feet on the tool. So it's just a half moon. And so when you tap in the new bearing, you can use a punch, or better yet, if you can find something that sits only on the outer race, and then tap the outer race in. You don't want to tap the inner race in, because that's connected. The inner race is it's not free floating, but basically don't hit the inner race, hit the outer race. So here's a better look at the guide. So I'm guessing it shoots fluid probably through this passage here, and then it spits the oil out of this hole, and that probably is what's lubricating this bearing. And obviously not that good, because you can see it's all black. And so it should be the same thing here. Oil shoots here, shoots it up here into this bearing. I'm thinking that maybe I'm not sure. Put the new guide in there, and then I oiled up the wall and the inside, and also this bearing. So then I just been tapping it. Make sure it's going in straight. And we're lucky that the inner race is recessed. So just keep tapping it. And then once we get it low enough, we'll start using a punch. Or I'll try to find a adapter for this. And it's slow. I can hear it slowly going in. So I'm not using that much force. I'm basically just using just slightly more than the weight of the hammer. I don't even need anything. I just angled this and I'm able to get it to bottom out, because the way I remember it is it's just slightly under flush, like it's just a fraction of a millimeter underneath everything around it. So it's bottomed out. What I'm gonna also do is I'm gonna cover this so that I can clean off all this and not get this junk in here. So I'll cover this with tape or something. But next I'm gonna get this out. So same thing here, tighten this and then lock the bottom. So tighten this nut here, and then same principle. I'm using a block of wood and I'm stacking. I stacked this one first and I got it up this high that you see here, and then once it got up I added this pliers here to raise it, and so now I might be able to get the rest of it. Yeah. So I got that out, and I'm going to take note that it says NTN here. These bearings did look good too, or not good, but they looked okay. But I've replaced every bearing in this transmission. I mean every bearing except for the low clutch hub, I think it's called, also known as a sprag. And that's not really a bearing. It's kind of like a hybrid between a clutch and a bearing. It's like a Z-shaped bearing. So I'm gonna replace everything. One really important thing is trying to figure out which direction loosens this, because I was actually hammering it in tighter. So I just went ahead and marked it with a permanent marker. It's gonna come off, but for now it's gonna help me. Yeah, it makes no sense why they didn't mark this with arrows, because I mean, how do you know which side is which? Anyways, make sure you mark this first before you use it. Here's the part number for the guide plate. This is the 5-speed. And so this guide plate, this hole, this bearing here is bigger than here. So you can't really mess it up. It's much bigger. So I've cleaned it out with brake cleaner and a paper towel. Here's the part number for the bearing. And so the way they had it was with the printed text facing up. And I do notice that it's a little bit different. It has smaller text on the original bearing, bigger text on the new one. I'm not sure if that means anything. It probably doesn't even matter if you install it the other way, because it looks basically the same. But I'm going to do it this way because that's the way it came out. So I'm going to lubricate this and then hammer it in. I lubricated it in the wall and on the outside of the bearing. I'm just going to lightly tap it. I can't tell if it's even going in right. This edge here, I can see that it is going in, but I don't know if it's going in straight or not. And I don't think it is, because I can see a gap here. So basically just like the other way, just make sure it's going in straight though. This one's really kind of dangerous because it was going in crooked and I was hammering it hard, but it wasn't going in. It was going in too much on this side, going down too much on this side. So what I did, luckily I was able to put this small flathead here and then just impact it to get it to go back up. But while you're doing this, be really careful. Make sure, actually, the way I knew it was going in crooked was because I used my caliper. So I used my caliper on this side and then on this side. So I can see that this side is now too high. And basically it's slightly higher. So use a caliper to make sure that you're tapping it in evenly. All right, next thing, I'm gonna smash this seal out, and the reason, well, I'm gonna do that, but I really want to get this bearing out. So first thing is I'm gonna put the flathead like this at an angle, and then tap it out with my rubber mallet, and then I'm gonna find something that's gonna touch on this edge, and I'm gonna try to tap out this bearing. So I have these blind bearing pullers. I'm just gonna go ahead and use them. This one is small enough to fit through here, and all I need to do is keep tightening this part right here, and it'll drive a pin through and it'll separate that to make it bigger. I'll use that to tighten it, and then I'll pull this thing out with the slide hammer. Alright, I did tighten this. It's really loose, but it's the closest fit because the other ones are too big for this hole. I've tightened it, the slide hammer, to the adapter, and I'll see if I can get this thing out. It's really hard. I'm gonna use both hands. So I got it out. That's what it was holding on to. And now you can see the bearing. And I'm gonna double check this bearing. Make sure that I'm taking it out the right way. Because I destroyed another, the left side cover. I destroyed that left side cover. Because I was smashing it, actually, and I thought I was smashing the bearing out, but I was actually destroying the race that it was sitting on. So I'll double check. So now that I've looked at it, I'm 100% sure the bearing comes out this way. It's really obvious because, ooh, this thing came out. That's the race for the differential bearing. Okay, so it's obvious that the bearing comes out this way because here's the race or the ledge that it sits on, so it has to come out this way.